So for the rest of this video, I'm just going to go through the other engines and show some of the minor differences of how the Warthog is configured for them. The AC4400 is probably the oddest one because it has the combined brake and throttle. Other engines have combined brake and throttle, but this one has the hump in between that you have to overcome. So using the A and D keys, for example, it takes a long press to get over that hump. So that can create some confusion with the lever because the hump prevents you from going over into the wrong zone when you don't want to, but of course the Warthog has no hump to prevent that. So it creates some confusion. So as with always, when you go to a new engine, set the profile. So that's profile number 2, the AC4400, and then we synchronize the levers. So I'm going to hit escape and I'm going to look at the levers. I see, let me get that out of the way, I see that the independent is all the way forward, so I'm going to move I put the flap switch back for independent, and then I move this through its full travel and I put it all the way forward. Now that's synchronized. Put it to the middle position for the automatic. I'm going to pull it all the way back, and the automatic brake is actually one step up from the minimum position, so I'm just going to push it forward till we hear that tone for the first position. We know that's in sync now. The reverser, as always, just cycle it through and then put it in the position to match. Actually, in the sim I have it forward, so I'm going to push it forward. And then the throttle, I'm going to hit escape and unpause the game and show that. First, put the reverser in the middle position. I have a reason for that, I'll explain in a moment. So I pull the throttle all the way back, and you see now it's doing all that wiggling in the game. This is what I mean by the confusion that comes from the center detent. Now it's synchronized, but with the reverser in neutral, if I try to push it forward to go into dynamic braking, the 4400 won't let me. That's Train Sim World doing that. That's the 4400 doing that, the way the real engine works, that you can't move it into dynamic braking when the reverser is in neutral. So let's synchronize this again. Put it at idle. Okay, now we're at idle. Now I'm going to put the reverser forward. Now I can go into dynamic braking. So you've heard that long tone. That tone is what I use to show you that you've gone over the bump. So the trick to using this one with the AC4400 is just to be patient and don't move it quickly. I mean, you can take the lever. I'm going to push it all the way forward. I'm going to pull it all the way back. And the Warthog will do all the proper key presses to get it from full dynamic braking to full throttle to full dynamic braking. This again is an example of what I meant by the difficulty that was involved in writing the software to make sure that these stay in sync. So the problem isn't keeping the Warthog and Train Sim World in sync. The problem is, to you, the user, it can be a little confusing if you get out of sync, or if you don't, something doesn't happen the way you expect. So just move it gradually and get used to it. And after a little bit, it'll be very fluid, it'll be second nature, and it will all make sense. So in order to show this a little better, I'm going to get the engine moving. Let's first take the independent brake off, take the automatic brake off, reverser forward, and I'm going to give it some throttle, and I'm going to get the engine going. And rather than you sitting here watch me do this, I'm going to skip ahead to a point where I actually have the engine moving, and I'll show you what I was going to show you. So here we are east of Sandpatch, east of the tunnel on the downhill. I'm accelerating because I want to demonstrate going from engine to dynamic braking. So the point I was trying to say about just being slow with this lever is just get used to it. You could just take it and go from here right into dynamic braking, but the proper way to do it in the real engine would be to go to idle. And in fact, actually the placard right in front there, and on other engines you'll notice it says to wait 10 seconds before going to setup on dynamic braking. So whether you want to wait those 10 seconds or not, I don't care, but the point is go to idle, know that you're at idle, then push through the hump and know that you've gotten to setup by listening to the tones, then go into dynamic braking. Same thing for going the other way. When you're going to exit dynamic braking, go to setup and know that you're in setup. We're in setup. Go through the hump. Now we're in idle, and then go ahead and add throttle. So just do those as you get used to it carefully, and it won't take more than a few trips back and forth to get used to it, and it will seem very fluid, very normal. Yeah, you see there we've got too much dynamic there. The yellow light's off. So then here's that example where, say you wanted to add, we're going too fast, dynamic braking isn't quite doing it. If I go any more dynamic braking, I get the warning light on. Brake warning. So this is a case where we want to use a little bit of automatic brake to slow down a little bit. So I show that example because on this engine it's a little more easy to get confused.